Hey, it's Nick, and today I want to talk about intrathecal chemotherapy. Before I start this video, I want to quickly shout out my grandma. You're the best. You were always with me when I got my intrathecal chemo, and love you, Gammy. So intrathecal chemotherapy is when they shoot the chemo directly into your spine. Because the chemotherapy I was getting would not penetrate the blood-brain barrier. Basically, if there was any lymphomas in my spinal fluid, they would need to be wiped out by the intrathecal chemotherapy. So as a kid, I loved House MD. I looked forward to every episode, like more so than the most die-hard Game of Thrones fan of today. I waited by the TV till it was House MD time. I was totally obsessed. But watching that show as a healthy person, I really didn't know just how dramatized it actually was. I distinctly remember a scene where this young man was getting a lumbar puncture and he was like shivering in pain. He was like really suffering. And I was never a fan of needles. Even as a kid, when I had to get blood work done for my Lyme's disease, both my parents had to hold me down because I was so terrified and in pain when it came to getting needles. So basically, I built up this internal fear of getting one of these lumbar punctures. While I was getting chemotherapy, the doctors told me I would have to get 4 of these intrathecal lumbar punctures of Methotrexate in case there was any lymphomas in my spinal fluid. You guys, terrified was an understatement. I was just brought back to that house episode. I'm like, I want nothing to do with this. I wanted shit zero to do with having a needle shoved into my spine. So my oncologist felt bad for me, so she prescribed a cocktail of morphine and Ativan. Myself and my grandmother actually called this my happy juice. Y'all probably know what morphine is, and Ativan, let's just say, subdued my inner psycho. So, on my first intrathecal chemo nightmare day, I asked one of my favorite nurses, Wendy, for my happy juice. She called in the prescription, she got it, she shot it directly into my power port, and the first thing I thought, not even a minute later, was this was a mistake. Big mistake. I would describe my happy juice at first was more like liquid vomit juice. As I was being wheeled down to the procedure room, I just felt myself going from really sick to really stoned. My grandmother looks at me and she's like, "How's the happy juice?" I looked at her and laughed. I'm like, haha, it's great. It's so great. Needless to say, I was feeling pretty good despite being very scared. So my oncologist shows up and she's like, "We need to flip you on your stomach." And I'm like, okay. So they get me onto my stomach and I'm just like, my face is in the table and I'm just laughing my ass off and shaking in fear. My oncologist looks at me and she's like, "We need you to be very still because this has to be precise." And I'm laying there, kind of laughing, waiting for the intense pain as I anticipated from the house episode. And all this build up, I felt one stick and burn, and that was it. I couldn't even feel the actual needle of the methotrexate being pushed into my spine because the first stick and burn was actually an anesthetic. And I was like, that's it? Like, I'll take 10 more. After that, it was like a slow realization that House was extremely dramatic and watching the reruns would never be the same. I get wheeled back into my room and take the best nap I've ever taken in my entire life. Besides all those Benadryl naps before my chemo, those are the shit. So fast forward to my 3rd round of chemo. I totally space and forget to ask for my happy juice. And my grandmother looks at me in the procedure room and she's like, "Where's your happy juice?" And she asks the nurse, like, is she gonna get any medication? And I kind of didn't mind because the last time was so easy. I was just thinking, like, I can do this. I can handle this without the happy juice. It's really not a big deal. It's not like it prevented any pain. It was more so me being stoned and laughing my ass off on the table. So the nurse in the room actually tells me my oncologist is in surgery or something, and she wasn't able to do the procedure. And this new guy was gonna do it. So I get nervous. I'm not saying it's the guy's fault, but this time it did hurt a lot. And after this round of chemo, I get the worst headache of my entire life. The only relief was when I laid down, but if I got up, the pain would start again and it would be throbbing pain. I actually had to go meet my stem cell doctor at this time, and when I got to that appointment and he walked into the room, I didn't even hear a word he said. I was just a shaking, bald, crying girl in a wheelchair, clutching her head in immense pain. He felt so bad for me that he actually went out of his way and ordered me a Coke. He put me in a private room in the cancer center with my own little bag of morphine. And that just like meant the world to me, since it was only supposed to be an appointment where I meet him and he discusses what would happen during my stem cell transplant. But after all that suffering, I get back into the hospital for round 4. I explain my severe headache to my oncologist and she says, "Oh, that's called a spinal headache. You know, you should have told us. We could just get you a blood patch and the pain would just go away." A blood patch is basically when they take blood from your arm peripherally, fill the hole with it, and the blood will coagulate and no more pain. I'm sorry, I had no idea that procedure existed. Why didn't I go to med school? Why didn't I watch more House MD? I don't know. So to all you lymphomies out there, other cancer patients, and just anyone in general who gets a lumbar puncture, if you get a severe headache when sitting up, ask your doctor for a blood patch, and it will save you a lot of pain and suffering. Now you know too. Needless to say, I never forgot to ask for my happy juice ever again, because that badass nap I took after that first intrathecal chemo was the difference. It's never a good idea to move too much after a lumbar puncture to avoid getting a spinal headache. So yeah, that is my intrathecal chemo story time. I hope this helps somebody out there. Na zdrowie. Thank you for watching.